This video is going to be about a shortcut that I use for multiplying fractions, and I call it pre-simplifying. So go ahead and put that as the header at the top of your page, as well as the date for today. The essential question for this video is, how can I multiply fractions more efficiently? When I multiply fractions, I certainly use the algorithm. So if I want to find 2/3 of 9/14, I would multiply the numerators together and get 18, and then I would multiply the denominators by one another and get 42. However, at the end, I would then have to check to make sure that I have simplified my fraction, and 18/42 can be simplified. Both our numerator and our denominator can be divided by 6, among other things, which means that my numerator would be 3 and my denominator would be 7. My total answer would be 3/7. However, I like to do a process of kind of pre-simplifying. And that simply means that I like to simplify my fractions before I even do any multiplying. That means that I don't have to multiply numbers that might be really large, and it also means I'll have less work to do when it comes to simplifying at the end. And I'll show you how this works by going back to my original number sentence, which was 2/3 times 9/14, right? That's what we started with. So before I even multiply, I want to look for any numbers that can be simplified. And I can simplify any numerator with any denominator. So the 2 and the 14 represent one numerator and one denominator, and they each have a factor of 2. So I'm going to divide the 2 by 2, which will get me 1. I'm also going to divide the 14 by 2, which leaves me with 7. I'm going to look at the other pair as well, and I can see that 9 and 3, right, one numerator, one denominator, both have a factor of 3. So I'm going to divide 3 by 3 and get 1, and divide 9 by 3 and get 3. Then when I look to multiply, I just have to multiply 1 times 3, which equals 3, 1 times 7, which equals 7. I get my same answer with smaller numbers to multiply, and if I notice, on this one, my answer has already been simplified. Here's another quick example, right? So I have 5/26 of 13/15. Now, normally I would have to do this by multiplying 5 times 13, which isn't so bad, but then I'd have to multiply 26 times 15, which is a little bit more than I want to deal with. So I'm going to look to see if I can simplify across, right? Cross simplification. So I see 5 and 15 both have a common factor of 5. 5 divided by 5 leaves me with 1. 15 divided by 5 leaves us with 3. I'm going to do the same thing with the other pairing. 13 and 26 can both be divided by 13, which leaves us with 1 and 2. So then when I go ahead and multiply like normal, 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 3 is 6. All that work that I would have had to do, I would have probably gotten a fraction with pretty large values in both the numerator and the denominator, and I would have had to work my way back down, but this is already nice and tidy for me, 1/6. So at this point, I want you just to go ahead and try this one before I show the answer. It's 4/27 of 15/22, and again, I do not particularly want to deal with multiplying 27 times 22. So go ahead and look to see if the 4 and 22 have anything that they can be both divided by, any common factors, and then do the same thing with the 27 and the 15, and divide both of them by any common factors you might see. When you're ready, unpause the video and we'll check and see how we did. How'd you do? I noticed that the 4 and 22 were both divisible by 2, so I took care of that first. Then I noticed that 15 and 27 could both be divided by 3, so I did that next. And when I multiplied what was remaining, I ended up with 10/99. And of course, this would work with negative numbers as well, right? Just we follow the same process, but then at the end, just decide whether your result is positive or negative. So we have 4/10 times negative 15/16. I see that the 4 and 16 can both be divided by 4, leaving me with 1 and 4. And the 5 the 10 and 15 can both be divided by 5, leaving me with 3 and 2. So if I multiply these together, I get 3/8. But of course, this was a positive times a negative, and my positive times my negative means my result is also negative. Right? So same thing, we just have to make sure we include our positive or negative sign. So again, this video was meant to just be a quick little shortcut that hopefully you can use. By no means is it required to do it this way, but I do think it is a way to avoid error and a way to make things a little bit easier on yourself. And that was that we just want to see if we can simplify our fractions before we multiply. This works just for multiplying and of course dividing because they are connected. This does not work for adding nor subtracting fractions. Be sure to bring your notes to class tomorrow and we'll go ahead and get a chance to practice that together.